Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Thanks for coming by.
Alaikum
Sheikh
salam.
Mohammed, Jazakallahu khairan for teaching us about marriage through divorce. That was,
Thank you, Jazakumullahu khairan.
So what would be some advice that you would give to the ladies, to the sisters, to the women about marriage?
The sisters.
Well, why would we begin with the advices to the ladies? What about advices to us?
Well, because I want to go home and I want to tell my wife when I see her. Sheikh Mohammed said
This
this,
is the
and Sheikh
case,
Mohammed said
since
that.
you just fed us. Once a lady came to the Prophet ﷺ for some of her needs, and after she's done, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Adatu zawjin anti?" Are you married? She said, yes. He said, so how do you treat your husband? She said, I take care of him as much as I can. He said, you better, since he's indeed either your paradise or fire of hell.
No, inshallah.
Meaning that your husband is the gate to paradise. If you obey him, if you protect him in his absence, if you protect yourself and his property in his absence, if you take care of your children, and take care of everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you to take care of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send you to paradise through him. Otherwise, with either your paradise or your fire of hell.
He'll bring you straight to hell with him.
My next advice, and I would say this is very important to listen to, avoid too much jealousy. Okay? This is to the wives. Avoid too much jealousy, because it can really destroy. Too much jealousy leads to bad suspicion and distrust, and that can cause a breach in the married life.
Wasn't Aisha, radiyallahu anha, maybe Allah be pleased with her, one of the most jealous
And if it was not the Prophet's wisdom, easily such marriage would be destroyed. Once, when the Prophet ﷺ was at Aisha's house, Safiya, may Allah be pleased with her, sent a pot of food to the Prophet ﷺ since he had some guests. So Aisha couldn't accept the fact that she's sending food, and Safiya was a very good cook, by the way. So she had a rock in her hand and she broke it. So it fell, and the food fell on the ground. Look at the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ. And instead of getting angry with either one or blaming her in front of everyone, he just collected the two parts of the pot, put the food in it, and they ate. And after everything was down, then the Prophet ﷺ addressed her, saying, just give her one of your plates. Take the broken one.
We call that even Steven.
Unlike what was said in the book of Fath al-Bari about that the Prophet ﷺ had the best wisdom in handling the problem. He didn't address anything, and what you did was wrong or was not. She knew it. Basically also because Safiya wanted, to put her in a position that she's sending food to her. So the Prophet ﷺ realized that she learned the lesson by just saying, give her a plate of yours. And that was sufficient. I'm sure another person would make a big deal out of it and can lead to
what are you doing? Why are you breaking her pot?
Aisha had all the right to be jealous, but there has to be a limit. Aisha even felt jealous of Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, even though she had died 3 years before the Prophet ﷺ married to Aisha. I remember once Nabi ﷺ went to the graveyard, Maqabir al-Baqiyah. This is the graveyard where many companions are buried there, most of the companions. This is just next to the prophetic masjid now. So the Prophet ﷺ returned from there, and he had a headache. This is illness where it lasted with him until he died, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he entered home, and Aisha was complaining of severe headache, saying, "Wa ra'sa, oh my head, I have a headache." The Prophet ﷺ said, "But me, oh my head, I have a headache." Then the Prophet ﷺ chatted with Aisha and said, Ya Aisha, it won't hurt you if you die before me, so that I would wash your deceased and I would wrap your body in a coffin and I bury you and I make dua for you. She said, yeah, and afterward, right away, bring one of your wives to my house. So all her thinking was going into this area. The Prophet ﷺ smiled at that. Of course, the meaning that the Prophet ﷺ meant to tell her that it would be better if you die before me, because I'll be praying for you, and you will not bear the shock of me dying before you, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
He could make dua for her.
Yeah. Once again, the Prophet ﷺ got up. He was asleep, and he left home. You know where did he go, Ya Abdul Rahman? He went to visit Maqabir al-Baqiyah and to pray for his companions who are being buried there. But Aisha followed him. She put her hijab on and she followed the Prophet ﷺ. She thought that he was going to one of his wives. And she saw the Prophet ﷺ spend some time making dua there, and she returned right away before him, and she covered up as she was asleep. The Prophet ﷺ said that, Ya Aisha, did you think that I was going... So it's a woman nature, but there has to be a limit at it. It should not exceed the normal and the average limit, or otherwise it would lead to bad suspicion, and it would create a lot of problems and fights. I remember once that was going to cause a big problem and a split in the life of the Prophet ﷺ with his wives, except for the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened himself and threatened Aisha and Hafsa, because he used to team up together. Once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam visited Zainab, one of his wives, Zainab bint Jahsh, who was originally his cousin, by the way. She had received a gift of a honey pot, and the Prophet ﷺ used to like and love honey. So he stayed there for some time. So Aisha realized that every time he goes there, she gives him honey, and they don't have this honey. So she said to Hafsa, whenever the Prophet ﷺ comes back, tell him, what is this smell? Okay, so they teamed out against, serving the Prophet ﷺ, just to offend him from the honey, so that he wouldn't eat it or drink it, and he wouldn't stay much longer at Zainab's house. So as she came to Aisha, she said, what is this smell? He said, what is it? It's offensive. It smells like maghafir. This is like some glue or aloe from a tree. It tastes good, but it has a bad smell. He said, I didn't eat but honey. She said, oh, it may be that the honeybees ate from maghafir. So again, even though it's honey, but it could be the smell from the honey. So when he went to Hafsa, they had already teamed up together. Hafsa did the same thing. She said, Ya Rasulullah, what is this smell? And imagine Rasulullah ﷺ, who had the best fragrance, as we said before, he used to wear 2 colognes at a time. And he said, the best 2 things to me in life of this dunya is
women and perfume.
And women in marriage and
perfume.
The perfume, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, and he finds himself that his wives are offended with the smell. So he said, by Allah, I will never eat honey anymore. That was a trick from them, and that was due to extreme jealousy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayat, the verses which explain to the Prophet ﷺ the whole plot. And number 1, Allah said to him, يا أيها النبي لما تحرم ما أحل الله لك تبتغي مرضات أزواجك. O Prophet of Allah, why do you make prohibited upon yourself what Allah have made lawful for you? Just to seek the pleasure of your wives? Then he directed the talk and the conversation to Aisha and Hafsa, saying, إن تتوبا إلى الله فقد صغت قلوبكما. Hey, you either repent unto Allah, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you, or otherwise. How could you ever team out against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam just because out of jealousy? So things like that used to happen, and it happened in the Prophet's house. And I personally believe, number 1, because he was a human. Number 2, because his wives were human. Number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made things like this happen to teach us, to point to mistakes, and to teach us as how to avoid them, and if they happen, as how to handle them.
I heard a hadith, and I don't know if it's good or not, but it basically said that women are jealous by nature, so patience is their form of jihad. Is this kind of goes with this, though, because women are jealous by nature?
I'm not really familiar with that.
I don't know if it's...
But I know for sure that, having a righteous wife who knows her rights and duties, she knows the guidelines of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the best thing in life. As Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib taught his daughter, in his opinion, the meaning of رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, which means, our Lord, grant us a goodly reward in this life and a goodly reward in the hereafter, and protect us from the fire of hell, saying that the goodly reward of the hereafter is paradise. And he suggested that the goodly reward of this life is the good wife.
Righteous
The good
wife.
wife.
Yeah.
The righteous wife.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing, the righteous wife. Maybe
Yeah.
you guys get one.
Inshallah. Allahumma ameen.
My advice also to one's wife is that the Prophet ﷺ stated that if a woman, by observing her 5 daily prayers regularly, by observing fasting during the month of Ramadan, if she can, by protecting her modesty, by protecting her husband in his absence, by obeying her husband, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will invite her to enter paradise from whichever gate she desires.
I think obeying the husband must have come the number one on the top of your list, not to avoid
No,
much
it should
jealousy.
not, because number one is obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there should not be any contradiction or conflict of interest.
I always tell my wife, you know how you get to Jannah? Obey your husband.
Husband.
I don't do that. That's rough.
And you want to go to Jannah? Take care of your wife. Be a good guardian.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the toughest thing to do, to be a good guardian and to give everyone their duties and get everyone their rights and do this.
There is really a lot to say, but last but not the least, before we get our meal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised and admired the righteous wives, saying, فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. The righteous women are qanitat, obedience to Allah, number one, then to their husbands, in what doesn't oppose what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to do. حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ, they keep the secret. They protect their husband's wealth and property.
Let's go get something to eat, guys. We can go this way. We can get something to eat.
Okay, let's go.
Alright, let's go.
Bismillah.
Reviewing the second rule of al-mim as-sakinah. That is the letter mim. So if the first mim is non-vowel or sakina, followed by a voweled mim. So I will merge the first in the letter and I will pronounce them as one. وَآمَنَهُمْ مِنْ. And we spoke abundantly on the virtues of seeking refuge with Allah from the outcast Satan. Especially for the first reciter, he's got to recite it out loud.
والسماء ذات البروج
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
فإذا جاءت الصاخة.
وإذا النفوس زوجت
Make sure it's Dhamma. وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ. Thank you for joining us.
Alhamdulillah, the food was really delicious.
MashaAllah, jazakumullah khair.
It was tight, man.
Khair and jazak. I did absolutely nothing.
Absolutely, because you're sitting here. How could you do anything?
I did nothing at all. Yeah, Sheikhna, a lot of married couples, especially converts from the West, they have problems with their in-laws. So what about the in-laws? How should we treat them? What should be the rights of them? How do we deal with them?
Why do you say especially in the West or converts? It's very,
everywhere.
very common worldwide.
It became worldwide.
I'm afraid it's in the Middle East more than in the West anyway. because of the family ties and so on. Now, let me tell you this. There are two things I would like to elaborate on concerning the in-laws. Number one, the in-laws who are the maharim, and especially the parents, whether the husband's parents or the wife's parents, so the in-laws of both. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoined upon us right after being devoutly worshipping Him is to take care of our parents. So the priority is for one's parents. I normally tell my wife, if she ever asks me how much I love her and so on, I say, I love my parents, number one. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is what He said, that none of you will become a perfect believer unless Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam are dearer to Him than anything else, including Himself, His wife and children,
His parents,
His business, everything else. So number one in one's life is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and give precedence to His commands over anything else, what He likes over what I like, or what my wife likes
over what I like.
Exactly. Number two, my parents. They have all the rights upon me and I cannot pay them enough. When a man was carrying his mother on his back, performing tawaf around the Kaaba, and Umar ibn Khattab saw him, he said, do you think, Ya Umar, I have paid her enough? He said, not equal to one cram or scream while she was giving birth to you. You need to do a lot and serve your entire life to be, to pay enough, to pay some, not enough.
This might be a fiqh question and out of it. What if your mom and dad are non-Muslim and your in-laws are non-Muslim?
Still, they do have rights upon you, which is وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Let them influence you, nothing in respect of your belief. But you have to give them a good company for two things. One, for their rights upon you. Two, to give them da'wah, to approach them with kindness, show them that Islam made you a better person, not run away from them. So you just give them a good company, assist them financially, take care of their needs, visit them frequently. But when it comes to religion, you're supposed to influence them, not the other way around. One's wife should be aware, fully aware of all of that. My parents have more rights upon me than you, than my children, than anybody else. So that should be,
like the hadith in I think it's in Bukhari or Muslim, where the three who were in the cave, and the man supplicated about the milk for his parents.
Where he stood all night long standing, carrying the milk. His kids were crying for the milk. They were hungry. But he didn't give them before his parents. And he didn't want to disturb his parents since they were asleep. He waited until it was really dawn, and he gave them the milk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a relief because of this good doing. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. Also, about her parents. They raised her. They prepared her for me. So I owe them all the thanks. A lot of men, they abuse this power. They say that, I don't want you to talk to your parents. I don't want any one of them to visit. If they're righteous people, if they didn't do anything wrong, why do you do such thing? You will be responsible before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for severing her relations with her parents. So if you like, if you yourself severed your relation with your parents and your family, don't impose that on her as well. You have to be a religiously committed husband and understand that this is mandatory and it comes right after worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second thing which I wanted to elaborate in respect of in-laws, once the Prophet ﷺ was asked, Ya Rasulullah, ara'ayta al-hamu? And this is very important. He said, al-hamu al-maut. He was asked about the in-law, such as the brother-in-law or the cousin. What do you think about him? He said, that's equal to death. Meaning what? You got to be very, very careful. Not warning against them, but they should not visit you in the absence of your husband. I visited the family once, and I noticed that he hosts his brother with him, to stay with him, so that he goes to work in the morning, and the brother is staying at home. And he said that he's my brother, he's my wife's brother. We have to understand this concept is completely false.
She can't take her hijab off in front of...
Not only that, she can't be alone with him, because he's not a permanent mahram. He's not prohibited permanently.
After the death of her husband or divorce, he can marry her.
Exactly, or death, or God forbid, whatever happens. So Here, there is a very important misconception have to be clarified, that a brother-in-law or a cousin or one who's not a permanent mahram is not permissible to visit in the absence of the husband and stay at home. If he comes and nobody's home, no children who are at the puberty age, no parents, no husband, well, come again later.
Is this the same for sisters-in-law?
Absolutely, same thing. What applies here applies there.
So now let's move to something interesting, which is money. How a wife should deal with the money of the husband. Does she have to tell him of everything she spend?
First of all, the Prophet ﷺ ordered the wife not to spend anything of her husband's wealth without his permission. Okay? Somebody said, Ya Rasulullah, what about food? He said, the food is the best of our wealth. Okay? But we have to rightly understand that. If there is a mutual agreement that the husband brings the salary or half of it, 2/3 of it, and say, you take care of the expenses of the house. Khalas, it's over. She doesn't have to make a statement of everything she buys, and she tells him, I bought this and I didn't buy that.
Today I bought some macaroni, tomorrow I'm going to buy some cheese.
And if she
Well,
gives
kill
in a
tomatoes.
charity, if she gives in a charity with a mutual agreement that he shares with her their word, he gets her word and she gets her word, because he's the provider and she's a spender. Okay? Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with her, he said that the best women at all is the one, or are the ones, whom are good and they smell good. Listen to the next. A woman who smells good, a woman who cooks good, and there's a combination here where we have to solve a problem, because a woman who likes to cook, and when the husband comes home and she smells all food and onions and so on, there is a contradiction. So if you can keep both, you're the best. Okay? She smells good, she looks good, and she cooks good, and whenever she spends moderately, and whenever she withholds and saves, she withholds and saves moderately. He said, may Allah be pleased with him, that she's one of the workers of Allah. She's working for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one who works for Allah will never ever lose.
Yeah, but there was a story during the time of the Prophet ﷺ where he allowed a woman to spend without the knowledge of her husband. She shall
Not to spend, to take. You're
To take,
talking about
right.
it happen if the husband happened to be cheap. In this case, a lady, it was Hind, who asked the Prophet ﷺ, when he stated that their women are not supposed to take of the wealth of their husbands without his knowledge, or spend without his permission. She said, Ya Rasulullah, what about if he's kind of very cheap, stingy? He said, خُذِي مَا يَكْفِيكِ وَوَلَدَكِ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Take as much as enough for you and your children with the reasonable basis. So, take what's enough, even without his knowledge.
So instead of buying steak for everybody, maybe you can get some chicken. You know, that kind of thing. Be reasonable on how much you take. Don't go get everyone lobster.
I don't think a person who has a family, wife and children would really be reluctant to spend if he have the means. But the problem is with the wife who forces her husband to earn from haram to meet their needs. You know, the Prophet ﷺ lived a very simple life. Urwa ibn Zubayr ibn al-Awwam once was asking Aisha about how they lived. She said, son, for 2 and 3 months we wouldn't kindle fire at home. We wouldn't cook. He said, what? You wouldn't cook? You wouldn't eat meat for 3 months? She said, yes. He said, so how did you survive? She said, we used to live on at-tamr wal-ma', dates and water. So a righteous wife also would consider that there are some tough times. There are some adversities where everybody goes through. I know that some women ask for divorce once the husband is laid off.
No.
And he cannot meet her needs. He cannot have parties and dinner outside anymore. I cannot live with him. He's poor. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said that if you marry her for her wealth, that will go. That will depart. And what will remain? Her manners, whether good or bad.
And that's not real love. Because real love is to be there and up and down.
Well, you have to remember marriage is like a roller coaster. You go up and down and up and down.
Sheikh,
and
I
up and
wanted to ask a question. If, for example, the wife, there's guests coming over. The husband gave to the wife a certain amount of money, but she wants to serve them in the best way. So she takes, without his knowledge, extra money to serve them. And then they have an argument because of that. Is that wrong or not? Because I know, of course, in Islam, serving the guests is very...
Look at the hadith. Take what's enough for you and your children on reasonable basis.
Not you and your guests.
Okay? Okay. So keep this in mind. And when we come to talk about advices to the husband, we would really take good care of them and advise them to be generous in spending and remind them that this is all for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it is food and drink.
Fool into me.
I would also advise the wife to take good care of herself, to dress nicely, to wear a makeup,
comb her hair.
Yeah, to be best looking for her husband and waiting for him in a nice shape and form.
She has to be stylish.
So that would satisfy him, wouldn't make him look outside for something that he's missing at home. This is actually the best catch, the best thing to keep her husband.
A man won't look away if he's, how can I phrase it in a nice way?
If he's missing.
If the catch is at home, he's not going to go fishing.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
True.
That's what
So take care of your husband. Please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obey him. Fulfill Allah's obligations first, your husband's obligations, your parents' obligations, and of course, your children and entire family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all of us success. And hopefully, inshallah, next time and before we wrap this up, we'll get to talk about a few advices to us, remind ourselves as how to be
good husbands.
Good husbands.
Best husbands.
But I don't need this advice. Shukran.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.